StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get to use those personal initiative, which is go get an energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is freedom and security. That is the topic here today. This is going to be a good conversation, just like we have every single day here on the show. But before we get into it, I remind everybody that I have a text message line where I send out messages that are guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. You should be in my text community to make sure every time I send one of those messages out, you are receiving it. Here's the number that you text to make sure you are in. My number is 305-384-6894 every day, or not every day, but every time those messages come out, you'll be getting that message straight to your phone, free of charge. You can even respond or just text me out of the blue and get a response from me, because I do read my replies and I do respond to people's messages. Ask one of your friends, they'll tell you. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is where I do all my coaching. That's where, if I work with anybody directly, that is the only place that I do it. All my courses, trainings, frameworks, everything that we do, our whole process that we help people create success from nothing to something, all happens inside of Work on Your Game University. You can go over there and get in where you fit in by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. As I told you a couple of days ago, we are in the process of revamping the way that we place things inside of the university. It's not even necessarily, I don't even need to create anything new, but just revamping the way that we structure it. So by the time you hear this episode, because I'm recording it long before it actually comes out, it'll already be in place. So if you haven't been over there to workonyourgameuniversity.com yet, I would suggest, if you know what I know, I would go over to workonyourgameuniversity.com and see what's up. So all that said, let's get into today's topic, which is freedom and security. So today what we're going to do is juxtapose these two elements, talk about how they relate to each other and how this plays out in your everyday life, and also what it means for your future. And again, the two topics, the two elements that we're discussing in today's class are freedom and security. Point number one, freedom and security are traded for each other. You trade one for the other. The cost of security is that you must give up some freedom. The cost of freedom is that you must give up some security. I would suspect that most of you probably want both at the same time. You want freedom to do what you want and live as you want and be as you please and move, come and go as you wish. And at the same time, you want to be secure to where you know you are safe and taken care of, and you're not under any threats, and there's no imminent danger. I would suspect most of you both want both of those at the same time. However, if you look around in your own life and the places in which you have the most freedom, there's very little security that comes with it. Look at the places where you have the most freedom. You can do anything you want to do. There's very little security that comes with it. And then look in the places where you are the most secure, where you know you are safe, taken care of, and there's no imminent danger and nothing's going to happen to you. There's little freedom that comes with that. This is simply how life works. So let's talk about some examples. We'll talk about some examples actually as I get through today's masterclass, but let's just talk about a couple here while we're here. Places where you have the most freedom, you can do anything and everything that you want to do, usually is a place where, guess what? Other people can do anything and everything that they want to do. And because everybody else can do anything and everything they want to do, you are not completely secure, because you have no idea what somebody else is going to do. You don't control 99% of what happens in life. So if you have complete freedom, I guarantee you ain't the only one around who has some freedom, which also that means, since you can't control other people, you can't be completely secure. Then look into places where you're secure, where you know you are secure, you are safe, you are taken care of, and nothing can possibly happen to you. In exchange for that security, well, guess what? The security means some options have to be taken away, locked down, and sealed off so that you can be the secure person that you want to be. For you to be secure, all options can't be available, because if all options are available, that would mean complete freedom, which means anything could happen, which means that ain't secure. So these work against each other. Everybody understand how these kind of counterbalance? Anywhere that you're completely secure, you got to give up some freedom, because that's the only way the security can be established. We got to make sure the place is secure and it's free. So any of you who's ever been in a situation where, I'll give you an example, my mom works in schools, and I remember years ago she told me this time that there was some kind of physical altercation that happened in a school. And this is like kindergartners and middle schoolers. This is when she worked in a middle school. This is years back. She's working in a middle school. And there would be some kind of physical altercation between the students at the school, and the principal of the school at the time would put the school on lockdown. She would often put the school on lockdown, and security guards would be called in to isolate and to stabilize the situation. Some physical altercation happening between kids. And when the school is on lockdown, that means all the entries and exits are blocked off and secured. Nobody can come in and nobody can leave. So the building is completely secure at that time. But the security of the building means you don't have all your freedom because you couldn't leave even if you wanted to. That's an example of a secure system. I remember being in a hospital. I was in a hospital when my son was born. I wrote the story about this and I did a whole episode on it when I talked about the sham that is the American medical system several episodes back. And being in Jackson Hospital here in Miami. And when you were inside of one of the units, actually all the units in there, when you went inside the unit, there was the doors locked behind you. And to get out, somebody had to push a button for you to get out. You couldn't just leave whenever you wanted to. There was a lock to keep you from leaving. I don't know why they have that. Don't even let me get and try to explain that. Again, this is all part of the sham. This is the medical system in the United States. And the whole thing is the security of that system, being that the door's locked every time somebody came in, the door closed behind you, also meant you didn't have as much freedom because you couldn't just do whatever you wanted to do. So when I went in there and I had the freedom of telling them, hey, this is how it's going to go, you're not going to tell me how it's going to go, I was challenging the fact that they had a secure place to say we could do what we want. That's the doctors and the nurses, that is. They were challenged by somebody who was coming in there expressing a kind of freedom that they weren't used to dealing with. I ended up getting my way, but there was a lot of friction in that situation. The friction was because I was in a place that is normally extremely secure, exhibiting a high level of freedom. That's why there was so much friction there, because I was being completely free in a place that's used to being secure. So my energy was just not mixing with the environment. It was like oil and water in there. And that's why I demanded, and we did get the hell out of there in a relatively short period of time. While they were trying to tell us it was going to take longer, it didn't take longer, because with my mindset of freedom, I demanded that it take less. And it was a lot of friction that went into that, but it ended up happening the way that I said it was going to happen, because I was accepting nothing less. We'll get into that as we get further into this episode. The whole point here is, since most of us want both, this is simply how life works, that there's a trade-off for everything. Everything balances out. So the question is, ultimately, if you had to pick one, do you want to be free or do you want to be safe? Now, we know what most people say in the answer to that question. I know how most of you would answer that question, but let's talk about what most people actually do, because I don't really give a damn about what you say. I want to know what you actually do and what you will need to do based on what you said. So based on what you said, here's what the trade-off is of those answers. Let's get to that. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is freedom and security. Point number 2. Most people's need for security is like the frog in boiling water. Any of you know what that means? So frogs like water because frogs can swim very well. But if you drop a frog into a pot of boiling water, the frog will feel the heat of the boiling water and will immediately jump out of the water. On the other hand, if you put a frog into some mild room temperature water or warm water, the frog will stay there in the water because it's not uncomfortable for the frog. But as you increase the temperature of the water to a boil, the frog will not notice the difference as the temperature slowly increases, and the frog will sit there and allow himself to be cooked as the temperature of the water increases. This is how many of you are when it comes to security. It starts with a little bit of security, then it goes up a little bit more, then a little bit more, then a little bit more, and before you know it, you are cooked in the boiling water. You never even realized that the temperature was going up. See, what happens with a lot of people is they go a certain route in life to secure yourself temporarily. At least that was your thought pattern. Like, I just need this temporary security right now. You get the temporary security, but the security is so welcoming and safe and predictable that you never jump out of the pot. And before you know it, as they say with the frogs, you are boiled in the squat. All the while, you've been telling yourself that you plan on getting out of that secure place as soon as this happens, or this happens, or this happens, or this happens. I'm gonna get out of this place that is providing me my safety and security. The problem is that as soon as that time never comes. And before you know it, 10 years have gone by, 20 years have gone by, a whole lifetime has gone by, and you're sitting there in that secure place and nothing's changed about your circumstance. This is what happens to a lot of people in life. I've seen this movie so many times. Give you an example. There used to be a time when you could, if you were getting on an airplane before September 11, 2001, if you were getting on an airplane, you and whoever was with you, let's say your kids or your spouse or your friend who drove you to the airport, could walk with you right up to the gate where you actually walk through the little tunnel and get on the plane. They could walk with you right up to the gate, watch you get on the plane, watch the plane take off through the big windows, turn around, walk out, get in their car, and drive home. That's how it used to be at airports. Those of you who are old enough to remember this know that's how it used to be at airports. Then 9/11 happened. After 9/11 happened, they added several layers. They added several layers of security to airports. So now you have the security lines you got to go through at the airports. You have the TSA checkpoints at airports. And nobody who doesn't have a ticket can get anywhere close to the gates where the actual planes take off. Now, why did they do this? They did this at the time, we'll say it was good reason, because 9/11 happened and it was this scare. A lot of people were afraid to fly for many years after 9/11 happened. So the TSA was designed to provide a certain level of security to passengers here in the United States. And this happened in other airports too, all around the world. They all did this. It used to be like this at any airport around the world. You could just walk right up to the gate and watch somebody get on the plane and take off. And the only way they could stop you from getting on the plane is if you didn't have a ticket. But you could walk right up to where everybody got on the plane. That's changed now. Now, it's been 20 plus years since 9/11. Now, I don't know how many possible terrorist strikes the TSA has prevented over the years. They often post pictures. If you follow them on social media, they post pictures of things they have confiscated on planes. But the thing is, and I'm comfortable enough to say this, that the creation of the TSA and the continuing existence of it, which I don't see going away, was an overcorrection by people who demanded security because of the response to what they call black swan event, which was 9/11. 9/11 was a black swan event. Everybody knows what a swan looks like, right? It's a white animal, gracious animal that glides along the surface of the lake. A black swan you don't see too often. It's an anomaly. It doesn't happen too often. If you see one, you're like, wow, you never see a black swan. Most swans come out white. 9/11 was a black swan event. It was a random event that usually doesn't happen, and it probably would not or will not happen again. Even if the TSA was not created, 9/11 probably would not have happened again. But because people have such a strong reaction to events that cause fear, high levels of emotion in them. Fear is a very strong emotion, that they will demand security and are willing to give up a considerable amount of freedom in exchange for what they feel is the security of not having that black swan event happen again. That's what happened with 9/11. The fear from what happened on 9/11 and the fear of it possibly happening again led to a bunch of people happily giving up a considerable amount of freedom in order to be safe from it possibly occurring even further. Give you another example. This happened more recently. All of you will know about this one. We know what happened when there was the COVID virus a few years ago. So many people were scared into believing that if you got this virus, it might kill you, or if you got it and gave it to somebody else, you might kill grandma or kill your kids, that many people gave up a considerable amount of freedom. All right, you can't even have a bare face. You got to put a cloth mask over your face that doesn't do anything, but you got to put it over your face, and or you can't go anywhere, and or you got to be 6 feet apart from everybody, and you got to put a mask on your kid, and you got to go take this experimental jab that they masked as a vaccine, which was not a vaccine, because people were still getting the virus after they got it, and we're not even going to go into that. But you had to give up a considerable amount of your freedom because people were so scared by the thought of what this virus allegedly would do to you. All the while, nobody got the flu the whole time that the virus was out. But again, that's a different conversation for a different day that we're not going to do here today. But people gave up a considerable amount of freedom in order to feel secure from the virus. Yet, despite all the giving up of freedom that people did, think about this. All the giving up of freedom that people did, putting masks on your face, not traveling, social distancing from people, washing your hands as like a novel idea all of a sudden for some people to wash their hands and get a experimental jab in you, all to be safe from the virus. People still got the virus, and the virus kept spreading. And then this is what people did. This is the cognitive dissonance. People came up with reasons why doing all those things still made sense, even though it didn't logically made no sense whatsoever, made none whatsoever. All the things that people did, but people had to come up with a way to make it make sense. They had to cope with their behavior, because it's not like you go back and undo your behavior. And very few people are willing to admit, damn, they duped me, they lied to me, I was being stupid during that period, I shouldn't have did any of that. Very few people are willing to talk like that or even think like that. So they had to come up with some excuse for why all the things that they did actually made sense when they clearly did not. This is what happens when you scare people. See, security is based around fear. People seek security because they're afraid. Any area of your life where you're seeking security, there's a fear that is leading to that need for security. And the more fearful a person is, the more need for security they have. And usually the more of a need someone has for security based in fear, the more easily you can strip them of their freedoms. This is how it works. You want to strip somebody of their freedoms, the easiest way to do it is to make them afraid. They will give you their freedom in order for you to give them security, or at least what appears to be security. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is freedom and security. Number 3, almost everyone I talk to is looking for some form of freedom. Most people don't come to me saying, Dre, I want to be secure. Most people come to me and say, I want to be free. I want to be financially free. I want to be time free. I want to have freedom to say what I want. I want to have freedom to think how I want. I want to be free to move about as I want to move about. This is, for example, somebody saying, I want to travel. A lot of people tell me they want to travel. I want to go here. I want to go there. All right, that's freedom of movement. This makes sense because America is the land of the free, home of the brave. All right, America is built on the concept of freedom. The challenge is many people do not understand the equation that I'm explaining here today. You will understand it now. Many people came into this episode not understanding this equation and don't understand what the actual price of freedom is. And people think freedom is free. Freedom is far from free. Freedom is actually quite expensive, as a matter of fact. Only people who think freedom is free are people who don't have it. Ask anybody who actually has freedom, what does it cost to have that freedom? They'll tell you. Ask anybody you know who's financially free what it costs. They'll tell you. Ask anyone who has time freedom what it costs. They'll tell you. Ask anyone who has freedom of movement, freedom of thought, freedom of word, what it costs to have that freedom. They will tell you what the price is. Then you'll know that freedom ain't free. Freedom is actually, again, one of the most expensive things you can acquire. So the thing is, many people don't understand the cost of freedom, and then they are concerned as to whether or not they are willing to pay it. See, once you find out what the price is, then you'll find out if you really want to be free. See, everybody wants to be free, so they find out what it costs to get it. And here's the cost. You got to give up all your security. You want freedom, you got to give up security. If you're a full-time entrepreneur, one thing that you don't have that someone with a job does have is you don't have a safety net. You have no security blanket to fall back on if something goes wrong in your business. See, when you have a job, you have a quote unquote guaranteed paycheck until it's not guaranteed. But for the most part, you can expect that check to come every 2 weeks as long as you work there, right? You're a full-time entrepreneur, ain't no check every 2 weeks. It's a check whenever you go get some money. You get no money, ain't no check. No safety net, no security blanket. Something goes wrong is all on you. That absence of security is what keeps many people from ever entering the space of entrepreneurship. Even though many people want to get into entrepreneurship, many people never do because that lack of security. They're not willing to, they want to be free, but they don't want to be free that much. Not that much they want to give up security in order to get it. And I talk to a lot of people who are actively employed, right now employed. They want to be free. They want to be entrepreneurs, but they understand what the price is, that they got to give up their security, and they're not quite ready to do it yet. So they're kind of, they're like the people standing at the edge of the pool, dipping their toes in the water. How cold is the water? They know they want to jump in, but they know what they got to give up to jump in. They ain't ready to do that yet. And unfortunately, many people die standing at the edge of the pool. What I mean by that is you stand there for so long, your time runs out, and you die right there at the edge of the pool, wondering what it was like inside the water. This is what happens to people. And I talk to people every day. All right, I'm not making this up. That lack of security is what holds many people back from taking a step forward that they want to take. This is not an indictment of you if I happen to be describing you, and there's a good chance that I am. The number of people listening to the show, it's impossible that I ain't talking about at least one of you. This is simply how the equation works. This is how it works. You got to give up one to get the other. You cannot be free and have full security at the same time. You got to pick one. Remember that in life, I told you this in episode number 2174, there are no perfect scenarios, there are only trade-offs. What are you willing to trade in order to have what you want? What are you willing to give up and not have in order to have what you want? This is a decision that you get to make. Let's recap today's class, which is freedom and security. We are juxtaposing these two elements, considering how they relate to each other and how this plays out in your everyday life, also what it means for your future. Number one, freedom and security are traded for each other. Cost of security is you got to give up freedom. Cost of freedom is you got to give up security. Most people want both at the same time. The fact is you can't have both at the same time. Point number two, most people's need for security is like the frog boiling in water. It starts out with a little bit of security, and before you know it, the water went from room temperature to a boil, and you didn't even realize it because the temperature goes up slowly. Many people start out doing things and saying, I just need a little bit of security right now. Before you know it, you got four walls built around you. You can't get out. You're completely secure, but you also have zero freedom. Point number three, almost everyone I talk to is looking for some form of freedom, financial, time, thought, movement. This makes sense. America's a land of the free. The fact is, in order to be free, you got to give up security. You got to pay with security. That's the cost of freedom. Freedom does not cost money. It costs security. If you're a full-time entrepreneur, there's no safety net. All right, that's the security that you gave up to be a full-time entrepreneur. And now nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody tells you when to come to work. Nobody tells you how much to charge for your products. That's the freedom that you get. But the security that you lose is that if you don't sell anything, you don't make any money. You don't eat. That's the trade-off. Question is, what trade-off are you willing to make to get what you want? Many people stand at the edge of the pool thinking about how cold that water is. They dive in, they give up the security to get their freedom. In any aspect of life, they never actually dive in. They die still standing at the side of the pool wondering what it's like to get in the water. At some point, you got to jump. This is just how it works. This is why we talked about pressure not too many days ago. All that said, text me so you can be in my text community. Every time we send out the text is guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. You'll be getting it. My number is 305-384-6894. And Work on Your Game University. That's where I do all my coaching. All my high-level trainings and frameworks are inside the university. If you want to be coached by me directly, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Link down below in the description. Work on your game. Dre, all